Okay, let's get started and have a look at some other aspects of Smartform Factory. First of all, the environment that we provide with Smartform Manager, the runtime environment, enables us to have multiple points of interaction with the system. These can be through your corporate website, perhaps through intranet or intranet applications, call center, even stuff targeting disconnected workers out in the field. So let's just have a look at a bit of a diagram of the workflow that we're going to be actually demonstrating in a few minutes. So the first task of any self-service portal is to enable users to discover your forms. The forms may in fact be hard-coded or embedded into web pages. We'll be showing you a couple of options for actually using some nice question and answer style wizards for locating forms as well. So there's many options for finding the form. Once the user's actually located the specific form that needs to be completed, or even set of forms, one of the things that we often need to do is get some pre-population data from a back-end system to pre-populate that form with either user-specific data or maybe even system-specific data such as price lists, etc. Of course, then we need to render or display the form to the user, and this is where we do a lot of intelligent device detection to figure out which version of the form or rendition of the form should be displayed, and we'll be talking more about that in a little while. Once the user's filled in the form, and they may want to save it along the way, and we support enabling users to partially save forms so they can come back and fill it in later, or even save it offline. But then the user needs to submit the data, and that data is submitted into Smartform Manager, which really acts as an system integration hub here as well. When the data is submitted, there's really two tasks that need to happen pretty much simultaneously. First of all, we typically want to display or send a receipt back to the user to view so that they can save for their own records and information about the data that they've actually submitted or completed. And then at the same time, very shortly thereafter, we want to initiate the back-end business process or provide data to the back-end system to enable that form or application to be processed. And of course, once that occurs, most workflows have important steps, milestone steps, as the data is actually flowing through that workflow or business process. It may include an approval step where a business user may need to approve a form. And of course, when that does occur, even if it's in a separate system altogether, we can pass status updates back to Smartform Manager and make them available through to the user. So we'll be demonstrating all of this in just a minute. So let's now cut across to Smartform, or go back to Smartform Composer and start off the submission processing, or I beg your pardon, the deployment of the form. So here we are in Smartform Composer. We've just seen this request for newsletter form be developed using Composer. What we're going to do next is publish this form to Smartform Manager, and we'll click on the Publish button. The default values are already filled in, and we'll click on Finish, and this publishing process will collect together all the data from the definition of the form and the different versions of the form that might be available, and pass that across to Smartform Manager. In here, we'll simply choose the organization that's actually the owner of the form. And an important element of Smartform Manager is that it can manage forms on behalf of multiple departments or agencies or business partners. So there's lots of different options there. And we'll also choose the portal or mechanism by which this form is going to be exposed to users. So we'll just click on Import, and that form will be taken across to or imported into Smartform Manager. There's a lot of configuration data that can be updated in here, a lot of So for example, descriptive information that can be supplied with form discovery services, and a lot of options for how the form might be rendered, maybe configuring the delivery process that's associated with the form. And in this case, we've already pre-configured the review and approval process. We're going to expose this form through the Days or Adobe CQ5 web portal, and this is a sample portal that's put together called Geometrics. And in here we have a menu in here with some of our forms that have been developed. And if I come across to this inline form, this is the form that we've just completed building, and you'll notice that when I go and display it, it's automatically been pre-populated with my registration details from my login that's associated with this particular portal. And that's an important capability of SmartForm Manager, is the ability to dynamically map pre-population data such as user registration or profile information into your forms very easily without having to do any programming. It's just a point and click exercise, and we can show you that later on as well. So as you can see, this is an HTML form. It's got some smart information that's actually displayed in here, and I'll click on a couple of the different options that are associated with this form, and come along and submit the form. So when I click on submit, that will send the data through to SmartForm Manager, and it in this case automatically generates a confirmation page for me. And in the confirmation page, it's giving the option of viewing PDF receipt. Now before I do that, I think we might just flip back to SmartForm Manager. So this is the administration console once again, and let's just have a look in the transaction log. This shows us all the submissions. This is typically viewed by an operations manager or administrator who wants to keep an eye on all the delivery or on all the data being submitted to the system, and it gives us a lot of detailed information. And you can see that that form was just submitted a second ago, and it's already been passed across to the delivery process. So the confirmation page, I can view my PDF receipt, and here I am in Adobe Reader now, and my receipt has been automatically generated, so I can save that for my own records. Within the portal though, one of the other things that we do enable is for users, registered users in this particular case, to view their submission history. And in the case of this particular application, I can see my processing status has been sent to received. And that's because I've got a workflow or an approval process here that's acknowledged that the processing status has now, that it has received the processing status. So if I just switch hats for a moment and switch across to the Adobe Workspace, Lifecycle Workspace, let me log in to this, and I do this as an employee of the company, obviously. So, and you can see in my to-do list, I've got one submission that's waiting for approval, and if I open that up, here's a PDF rendition of the form that's been submitted for approval, and you'll see that there's even an attachment associated with it, which is the read-only receipt associated with this particular form. And down the bottom I can click approve, and that workflow will now carry on. And if we go back to the submission history, and if I just hit refresh, you'll notice that that's now been approved in the submission history for the portal. And similarly, if I go back to SmartForm Manager and view those transactions again, in fact, if I drill into the details of that particular submission and look at the processing status, you'll see that it's actually got a complete login here of those sort of milestone steps in the workflow. Of course, we don't want to track every individual step in a workflow, just key milestone steps. I think the next thing that we can do is we've shown an example of how the form was published from SmartForm Composer through to SmartForm Manager. There was some simple configuration data that was then passed across, and then we viewed it in a web portal. What I wanted to do next was to do a slight variation of that, and in this case we've got a different type of form and a different type of portal that's being configured. And this is one, it's a mock-up of a government assistance portal. I'll come along and log into this. This is a custom developed portal. It's very specific around providing some functionality for a specific user. So if I come along and say find forms, in fact if I just go back here, I'll explain that there's functionality here to locate forms. There's a to-do list, so I can partially save forms and come back and do them later on, or even have forms reassigned to me, my submission history, and also manage my user profile through this. So if we come along and choose find forms, we can filter the forms by perhaps a department or agency, and if I choose Department of Health or Aging, you'll see that I filter it down to a smaller set of forms. In this case, I'm going to choose the medical screening assessment form, and when I click on that, it brings me through to what we call a landing page. Now, this page is generated automatically by SmartForm Manager. All of the data associated with this page and even the co-branding is configured and managed through SmartForm Manager, so that a user can be, you can screen the information about the form before you go in to fill it. There's also a lot of metadata behind this page that can be used by search engines to index all of the forms that are used by your organization. So if I choose complete form, you'll see that it's rendered the form for me automatically. In this case, it's a PDF form, an interactive PDF form, rendered and viewed through Adobe Reader. Once again, the form's been pre-populated because it knew about my information from my user profile. It's got all the sort of normal interactivity you'd expect in an intelligent SmartForm app, such as hide show logic and the ability to just refer, only display very specific information in the form itself. So once again, I'll come along and in this form I'll click on submit, and when I do that, this form's also being configured so that I can upload attachments, and there are two different types of attachments, either required attachments or optional attachments. If I click on attach a file, it's asking me for my medical history. So if I click on attach a file, I'll come along and just find my medical history record, upload that information, and then carry on. Now, not only does this form require an attachment to be displayed, but there's also payments associated with this particular form as well. And what we don't want to do is actually embed all that credit card or payment information in the form itself. You'll notice this is all just information that's supplied by SmartForm Manager independent of the form itself, so that we don't have to deal with all the security information in the actual form. So let's come along and just put in some information. Obviously this is demo stuff, and once again when I click on submit, it'll take me through to my confirmation or thank you page, saying in a similar way to we saw in the geometrics portal. In this case, there's a large receipt number that's been automatically generated by SmartForm Manager when it was submitted, and we can view the receipt once again dynamically within Reader. And just as we saw before, there's a workflow associated with that particular form, and if we come along, you'll see that that form's already been, or that workflow process has already been invoked. This time it has two attachments associated with it, both the receipt of the document and the attachment. So I can just click on approve, and that'll be passed back to the SmartForm Manager. So there are a couple of other things we just wanted to look at very quickly. SmartForm Manager is actually quite a large, it's got a lot of capabilities for managing large-scale SmartForm apps being deployed across multiple organizations. It being an interaction and integration hub, there's actually a lot of very valuable information that we collect along the way, such as information about the submissions that are coming through, the ratio of requests to submissions, lots of information about the browsers that are being used, and all very important information that can be passed back to other analytics systems to help manage your environment. And of course, the purpose of SmartForm Manager is to really provide a performance and monitoring environment that enables your operations staff to carefully control and ensure that the system is operating in a very reliable way. If we go back to the Geometrics portal for a moment, one of the other capabilities that we should show off as well is the integration of what we call Smartform Finder. Now, as organizations increasingly have a large number of SmartForm apps being deployed, we want to make it easy for users to discover the appropriate SmartForm apps for their particular requirement. And Finder is a really easy way to actually do that. It provides a question and answer metaphor to helping users discover a particular set of forms. The data for this particular sample was actually set up as a grant finder. So the first question is really what kind of business, or the next question is what sort of business do you operate? Okay, so let's have a look at another capability that's provided by Smartform Factory, and that's the integration of something that we call Smartform Finder. Finder provides a very intuitive way for users to be able to discover SmartForm apps that are relevant to their particular business problem. And what we're going to do here, this sample has been set up to enable users to find business grants or grants. And in this particular case, what we're going to do is come down, and there's a series of questions that are asked, and the answers to these questions filter a subset of forms that are relevant to their particular answer, and it then asks a following set of questions. These questions can all be configured dynamically, and the resulting forms, as it narrows down the answer, it narrows down the set of forms that are actually available to us. So we can set that up as a favorite, and that can be added to our inbox of information to answer later on. So we can maybe choose another branch to go down, and choose another set of forms to add to that. These forms then become available to you to use or to complete through the user or digital self-service portal.